Well, I really can't take credit for it, but I'll take credit for the DoD CIO. We have a cyber scorecard. So about a year and a half ago, we had this thing called a cyber sprint, which turned into a cyber marathon, which turned into a cyber death march, and now it's kind of the new normal of life.
Okay.
And it goes right back to what I first learned in systems engineering software development. You got people, processes, and systems. And at the time, we really had nothing but people. We had some processes and some systems, and the task was to get it together to be able to report on how we were measuring ourselves against success against the cyber sprint things that we needed to do. DoD, if you can imagine, we spend about $40 billion a year on IT, and you have all the stuff that we've already put in, so we have millions, tens of millions of endpoints, tens of millions of users, and keeping track of how we're securing all the things those systems, all the things those people do on the DoD is a daunting task. So we started out pretty much just collecting data calls. In fact, our service components, and we have a fourth estate, which is not the press. The fourth estate is the defense agencies and activities, which is rather large. How they were doing against the tasks they were given. So we started with the people and the processes. We got data calls. We weekly updated a very manually intensive chart. And as we worked with the components and the agencies to realize how we get good understanding of how we were meeting those tasks with measures and metrics, we slowly began automating it.
Okay.
So we went from almost all data calls to adding simple data feeds. So now we have about 12 different systems that are automatically updating the system. We're refining the metrics to make it more meaningful and relevant to how it adds lethality and efficiency to the department. And we're about ready to go into Cyber Scorecard 2.0. And this goes back into people and processes. We're working with a thing called Defense Innovation Unit Experimental, DIUX, you may have heard of that, and tapping into Silicon Valley on how we can make this more real-time, more feeds, more artificial intelligence, machine learning, to have a real risk assessment and cyber resiliency, so how we can fight our networks to bring lethality to our enemy, and to be best partners with our partners.
Wow. You know, we probably could talk cybersecurity for hours. We could talk about all the panels. In fact, we could probably do a radio show every month just on that subject, because it is such a challenge and it is such a high priority and high profile issue right now. What are some of the lessons you learned as you worked your way through these things in order that you'd pass on to your colleagues about perhaps to shortcut some of the things they need to do? So
this is back to the other two panels we've already talked about. So again, back to systems is working with service components, defense agencies to ensure that the systems will tie into a dashboard that is relevant, that is real time, that we work with our partners. So as an example, they call them the Friday beatings, right? So the service components would come in and we say, your scores aren't good enough, your scores aren't good enough. And we realized that we had to bring this up to the chiefs of staff, the senior leaders of the department, and say, hey, you're making mission trade-offs every day, and for good reasons. And we need to show you that you may be making a trade-off that's not being invested into the DoD and the systems of your service component, and you're putting it somewhere else instead. Maybe you need to make a different risk assessment and put some money back into the infrastructure of the SIXs and the CIOs of the different service components and agencies. When we were able to show that and work with the service component CIOs, the CFOs, and the leadership of the department, we got some pretty good traction. In fact, General Schwedo can probably tell you.
I'm the recipient of those meetings, yes.
but now the bidding shifted from the CIO to a service component who's on board with this,
right.
and hopefully giving the service components the money and the resources they need to get things
What's
done.
some of the hardest things, the challenges, the hard things to get done in order to accomplish what you're trying to do, to get the result you're after?
Just the amount of things that that all the service components, so soldiers, sailors, coasties, Marines, airmen are doing to fight the fight, but also have to maintain our network. So the current fight, the future fight, technical debt. We again, all those risk trade-offs as we were fighting wars all around the globe, supporting, I heard FEMA and DHS and others with defense support to civil agencies. All things that we were doing, we were making those risk trade-offs and building up technical debt. So we are reinvesting in that, marking down the technical debt. Ruthless configuration. One of the things the Cyber Scorecard showed us is, why are we going slow in certain places? And when we got together as a team, we said, if we were on one operating system platform, we could do so much goodness so much faster. So that made the decision to go to Windows 10, which required the partnership of the leadership of the department, both at the mission leaders to the financial leaders to the CIOs to make that happen.
Right, I do remember when Terry Halverson was on one of our radio shows and said, we're going to Windows 10.
Yeah, so some of the challenges are we had so many diverse systems, we had so much technical debt, we had processes and the different components that were different, and this really helped to coalesce, to align us, give us focus, and move forward.